Good evening, Wesley Church. This is Pastor Justin. It's so good to be here with you. And that's right, we have a new name, Midweek Check-in. This is our new devotional series. It's a series that we're going to bring to you each and every Tuesday evening. Pastor Sarah and I will alternate back and forth, bringing to you a devotional, maybe including some information about activities, events that are happening here in the life of the church over the next week or so. And then also sharing with you, if we have something to share with you about a story that we've heard, or maybe something we've heard in the news, or maybe some sort of piece of current event that we've heard, something informative that we want to share with you. It's just a great chance for us to gather together each week for a devotional time, but also to check in with one another in the life that is going on in and around us. So tonight, our devotional is going to come to us from the Gospel according to Matthew, and I'm going to share with you that scripture here in just a moment. But first, I wanted to share with you a story that I heard on NPR this morning. I was driving to the church, and I was listening to a story that was on WGLT about a mental health professional who had sort of adopted this term, felt like this term was very appropriate for the years 2020 and 2021. This was a term that this person felt like was just very descriptive for something that I think most of us or all of us have experienced in the last year plus during the pandemic. The term is languish. Now, it's a very interesting word. It's one that this mental health professional felt like everybody had experienced to one degree or another. And languish has a very interesting definition. I'm just looking here on the Oxford Dictionary, this, according to Google, and it's somebody who suffers from being forced to remain in an unpleasant place or situation, and I'll add, for too long. Languishing is something that a person does when they just sort of exist in an unpleasant situation for an extended period of time. I don't know about you, but that sounds exactly like what we've been going through over the course of the last year. But what's interesting about languishing, I think, is that it's not really one extreme or the other. It's sort of this thing that just exists in the middle. And let me explain what I mean by that. Languishing is the opposite of thriving, right? It's this idea that you're not really striving for your goals as you once were. You don't have the same hopeful outlook on life as maybe you once did, but instead you've sort of just acclimated to the negativity that surrounds you. You've become accustomed to living in a situation that's not really ideal. Some might even say in a situation that's bad. That sounds exactly like the pandemic. It sounds like exactly what we've been faced with. We've just sort of gotten used to the world that is around us. We've adapted, and we've learned to live in a situation that, well, frankly, we'd rather not be living in. This reminds me of that old story about the toad who somebody's going to make frog soup, and they put the frog in, and the frog sort of gets kind of acclimated to the water, and they keep turning the temperature up, and the frog doesn't even really realize it because the negative surroundings just continue to go up around them, but they're just so used to what's happening, they just get sort of used to it. This is sort of what's happened to us during the pandemic, right? We're sort of used to what's going on. Some of us might not even really fully understand the emotions that we're experiencing because they're just the new normal. They're just sort of what's happening. Languishing is also not quite depression, right? On the other extreme. It's not thriving, but it's not depression either. It's close, but it's not quite. Depression is that clinical diagnosis that a mental health professional has to make in order to help someone begin to understand the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings that they're having that have led them to a particularly difficult place. Depression is definitely a clinical diagnosis. It can be treated with medicine. It can be treated with counseling and therapy, but it is not the same as languishing. Languishing is a step back, right? It is something that we are doing. We're just existing. We're sort of used to what's happening. We're not thriving, but we're not depressed either. Which brings me to tonight's scripture passage. As I said, it comes to us from the Gospel according to Matthew. This is chapter 11, verse 28. I'm going to read it from the New International Version. These are Jesus' words, and he shares with us this promise. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Now I imagine Jesus adding that word languished in there. Come to me, he would say, all you who are weary and burdened, all you who are languishing, and I will give you my rest. And I think that's where it's the most appropriate to add that word languishing in there, to think that God is capable of sending us a helper who would help us through those difficult times of life. I don't know about you, but this is where I find my faith is so helpful. When I find in Jesus is someone who is a friend, someone who can see me through those very dark, those difficult times. I have called on Jesus many times in this pandemic, asking that God would just be with me as I deal with the emotions that I'm feeling at that particular moment. My prayer might sound something like, God, I'm just struggling today. It's been a rough one. Would you stand alongside of me and help me through this day? And congregation, I don't know about you, but I am confident there's probably somebody out there today listening to this devotional for whom even yet this period of time is still a bit of a languish. There is a struggle to be had just to get through the day today. And if that's you, if you're struggling today, I want to invite you to do something. I want to invite you to first say that prayer or some prayer similar to it. Invite Jesus to be your source of hope. Invite him to come in and give you a sense of peace and calm. And I am willing to guess that there will be something. It's not going to be a cure-all probably, but it will be a sense of peace. And I pray that for you tonight. But I also hope and I pray that you'll call upon somebody who can be a trusted friend, a confidant, and an advisor to you to help you walk through whatever languish you're feeling. Maybe you have a friend, maybe you have a mental health professional, maybe you have a pastor. I know of a couple who would be willing to talk with you about whatever you're experiencing. But I invite you to go out and find that trusted friend, somebody you can speak with about the things that you're feeling. And I know it might seem odd to many people to be bringing up this feeling of languish this so far into the pandemic, this so many months after it's begun. Some people might look at me and go, man, would you stop being negative already? But the reality of it is, for many of us, I don't even think we've fully dealt with the emotions of the pandemic just yet. And I think as the months and the weeks and the days and whatever continue to go on, we're gonna see some fresh emotions that we haven't seen perhaps in a while. We're gonna see people beginning to feel things that they haven't really quite dealt with. And I hope and I pray that as believers, we will be ready to help our friends and our family, our loved ones, to cope with those emotions as they become fresh for us again, and we finally are able to let our guard down enough to deal with them appropriately. The pandemic may be hopefully coming to an end, and we see a bit of hope on the horizon, particularly with all of these vaccines that are around us. But the fact of the matter is, we are coming out of the pandemic, but we're still going to have to deal with the effects of the pandemic for quite some time. And I invite us to be ready for those emotions as they come our way, to be prepared for what that languish has done to us. Whatever it means, if you would like someone to talk to, I invite you to give the office a call. I'd love to set up a time to visit with you. I'm just a listening ear, somebody who's had my own languish to deal with this past year. I'd be happy to hear about yours. I'd love to just sit down and have a cup of coffee maybe even. Also, I want to invite you to come out to worship this next weekend. Here's my little announcement, the thing that I'll tie in for the life of the church right now. We had a great time worshiping together this past weekend. I wasn't able to worship with you in person, but I heard that the service went really well, our first one indoors in over a year. If you want to come out this weekend, you can go to our website, www.wesleyumcbloomington.org. There you'll find a sign-up place. You can sign up for our 9 o'clock traditional service or our 11:30 contemporary service. We do ask that everybody signs up. We have to require it right now because attendance is only able to be limited indoors, so we can get everybody safely distanced from one another. But it's going to be a great second week of worship in person inside the sanctuary, and we hope that you'll come out and join us. Go ahead and that website on your screen there and sign up for worship. Congregation, I hope you have a blessed evening. We'll see you next week, Tuesday night, for our next Midweek Check-in. Take care now. Bye-bye.